Hello and welcome to News9. Over the last few days, China has rolled out a very impressive list of hardware, military aircraft, amphibious assault ships, warships, submarines, fifth and sixth generation fighter aircraft. Should we be concerned? I am joined today by Lieutenant General P.R. Shankar, who's former DG Artillery and who watches China very closely, all their developments, political and military. General Shankar, welcome to News9.
Oh, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Sandeep, for calling me once again on News9. It's a pleasure to interact with you and such an important topic. Let's,
Absolutely. China has rolled out so many hardware in the last couple of days, General Shankar. We've been looking at it with amazement. A fifth generation aircraft, a sixth generation aircraft being escorted by a fifth generation fighter aircraft, the warships of the kind that few countries in the world can field. And of course, they are competing with the United States. And we've been talking, in the last couple of days about how India should be worried. Of course, we should be, and I'm sure we're preparing for that. But while everyone talks about China's strengths, we all know their economic and military muscle. Uh, does China really have any weaknesses? Does it have any vulnerabilities that we can focus on while we go ahead? Is the China
yeah,
man 10 foot high, as they say, or does he have any weaknesses that other countries
the
can
Chi-
look at?
look, the way I look at it, the China man is just 4 foot tall. He's not nowhere near 5 foot, leave alone 10 feet.
Right. Why do you say that?
Now, the point is this, uh, China depends a lot on PR and Infowar and, dazzle and razzle. So
Right.
it always comes out with the sixth generation and hypersonic and,
Yes.
mother of the all battles and things like that. A lot of PR and it hits you.
Right.
And it tells, look, the sixth generation, take it. I mean, that's not a proven system. It's just flown. We don't know
Right.
what its systems are except what the Chinaman has given out,
Yes.
right? Nothing is known about it, but it's given out. The same thing would happen with the hypersonic. The hypersonic, re-entry vehicle and all that, FOBs, all that was tried out 2 years back. Actually, that missile landed 20 kilometers away, but after that, it has not been operationalized. But that
Right.
hover of having that great thing is there.
Right.
But
Lots
one
of
has
spin,
to,
you'll say. Lots of spin and not enough
l-
substance when it comes to China.
yes, that's the thing. And you have to look behind this screen and view PLA and China holistically.
Right.
When you view China and PLA holistically, then things start standing out. It's not a great army. You can tackle it. It's not as if we can't tackle it.
Right.
And we have proven it. I mean, again, when we look into our own history, you have bested them in 67 across Natula.
Yeah.
You stopped them you did what you had to do in Arunachal Pradesh in the 80s.
2002, 1987.
Yes. And no, that forward deployment, till then they're worried. We took all the heights out there and we dominate the heights in Arunachal Pradesh. That's why they keep crying when they come to Yangtze.
Right.
Then we stopped them in the tracks in Doklam.
Hmm.
Eastern Ladakh, we outmaneuvered them in Operation Snow Leopard. And
Right.
we hit them hard in Galwan. I
Hmm.
mean, uh, they know. They have never not bested us. One. Number two, there is no other country which has pushed PLA 9 kilometers back.
Right.
Think from that blockade which they put at that junction or, bottleneck. They have gone
Yes.
back 9 kilometers. They've broken
In
all
Depsan.
structures in Depsang. Earlier in Pangongso and in, the Chushul area, I would say when I say Chushul area towards Moldo, they broke all their structures and went back, especially on Finger 4. They even
Right.
put a map to say that this is Chinese territory. They broke
Right.
all that, obliterated all that, and went back. Which other country has done that?
Yes.
No one. Not even the Americans. Americans have got stuck on the 38th parallel in Korea. The Vietnams pushed the Chinese back, but well, China, as per Chinese teachings, they've taught Vietnam a lesson. They taught us a lesson.
Right.
Okay. But you look at the way they grabbed Hong Kong.
Yes.
There's no step back. You look at the way they've gone across South China Sea and, almost usurped South China Sea. They've not taken a step back. The Americans
Yes.
could do nothing about it,
Mm.
but we have pushed them back repeatedly. One has to think why. I mean, and we have to assess the Chinaman in our battlefield, common battlefield. We are not going
Right.
to go and fight him in South China Sea. You're going to fight him in Himalayas.
Right.
And in Himalayas, I have written about it also. I see six incapabilities.
Six
Would you believe
incapabilities.
it? Six
Right.
incapabilities. What I'll do is I'll enumerate these capabilities and we can discuss each one of them.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, there are six incapabilities of the PLA. The first incapability is it's got new soldiers always.
Right. Because it's a
It's got
conscript.
new
Yes.
conscript army and right. The second incapability is constantly it has new leaders due to the purges.
Right.
The third is it's got new equipment constantly being inducted, like we've discussed.
Right.
Okay, it generates its own problems. We'll discuss about it. It has assumed new roles over the past 10 years, which is it has never had experience in. It has gone into new battlefields.
Right.
Every day a new battlefield is opening up for China. Right. And third, and the last one is it's got new organizations it has to cope up. And
Right.
all this has happened in the past 10 years.
Right.
So where do you want to start? Which incapability will start there?
Right. Let's start at the very beginning. The number one, a lot of new hardware that's flowing into the PLA. So,
Yeah.
as a professional soldier, give us your take on how long it takes to induct new hardware. I'm not even going into the fifth and sixth generation aircraft because that is way down the line. It's going to take them a decade to develop all of that.
Yeah.
This is just a prototype. It's a very impressive beginning, but it's going to take years. But when you
Yeah.
get, say, a new system, how long does it take to get your soldiers familiar with that?
See, what happens when a new system comes in? You get the system, you get soldiers, you train on that, you perfect your training, and then you put these chaps in the field and withdraw the old equipment.
Right,
It's a process. Minimum take on this is 3 to 5 years.
right,
The first elements of this process will be ready in about 3 years.
right,
And the last elements, depending on the amount of induction which is there, will take five and more.
right.
And this equipment has to be meshed with the existing systems.
Mm.
So it takes time. And these people are inducting equipment as if there's no tomorrow.
Right.
And
And there's a
every equipment,
rapid induction of equipment. That's one, of
yeah,
course.
yeah,
Uh,
that
the
you
new,
can't just do it interminably. Yeah.
the new
So,
structures that you mentioned, the PLA is
okay.
expanded, it's reformed. Of course, Xi Jinping is,
Yeah,
completely.
see, yeah, I rather than new structures, let me start with new roles.
Right.
Because from the roles come the structures.
Mm.
See, primarily, PLA the primary role of PLA is to guard the Communist Party and support
Yes.
the Communist Party.
Right.
Now, PLA, for the best part of till Xi Jinping came, has been defensive in nature.
Yes.
Suddenly, when Xi Jinping comes, he talks of reunification of Taiwan, this, that, and all that. They've assumed as offensive roles. So it
Right.
was fundamentally that in that offensive role, he was more interested in Taiwan.
Right.
Now, right. Then he extended it to India with his concept, and it failed. Now he's extended these new roles to the South China Sea and the East China Sea, and also into the Western Pacific. He also assumes a global role as an expeditionary force.
Right.
So all these are new roles. Now, new roles for which China has never been prepared.
That's the
I mean,
very interesting point, General Shankar. The fact that how while the United States has always had an expeditionary military, it's had about more than half a century of experience. I mean, starting from the First World, almost a century of experience
yeah,
from the First World War. And you have China, which, as you very correctly pointed out, is essentially a defensive military. and it's used to surge out and attack its neighbors and fight border skirmishes. Of course, Korea was one of those. It's possibly the biggest conflict that China has fought since the Second World War. But the new roles that Xi Jinping has outlined for the PLA, that has happened in the last decade or so. You're saying that they never prepared for any of this
No,
over the
they're
last.
not prepared. There's no practice. And when they had the chance, they ducked. For example, recently, when the Houthis were trying to close the Red Sea,
Yes,
channel, the US Navy was active.
yes,
On this side of the Red Sea channel, in the along the Somali coast, the Indian Navy was active.
yes.
But where was the Chinese Navy? It was not there. It's in Djibouti.
They were deployed in the Red Sea, but I don't think they really ventured out much to, either rescue any vessels or
Nothing.
intercept
Nothing.
missiles. But
Nothing.
could the Houthi conflict have been a result of China being, on the side of Iran and the Russian Federation, and therefore choosing to stay out of this conflict?
Fine. I am okay with it. They chose to stay out, but they lost practice. No, that
Yes,
role
a
is
great
not
opportunity. Of course, they lost a great opportunity.
opportune. The point, what I'm trying to make is they have a role which they can't play.
Right, right.
We don't know the efficacy of all this. Right. So now new roles demand new structures. So I'll get back to that point. Okay. Now, if you, for example, they had this strategic support force,
Yes,
which had everything. And this was a force which Xi Jinping brought in at the beginning of his tenure, around 2015. Now, by 2023-24, he breaks it and makes it into an information support force and aerospace support force and a logistics support force. Now, why? No, you can't keep breaking structures every second day.
yes, yes.
Okay. So now you do that. Why did he do it? It's political in nature. See, one thing is anything which happens in China is political in nature.
Right,
The army comes later. Why? Because the SSF, it was understood, was becoming too strong for him.
right.
Because it had information, it had aerospace, space, everything. So Xi Jinping broke it. So that role and the structure don't match.
Mm.
Then you look at it, 19th Party Congress, I'm now going back in time. The role assigned to the PLA was to go and conquer the world. By the
Right,
20th Party Congress, he was saying,
yes,
no, no, we'll only do local wars.
right, right,
So again, you see a role reversal and the structures also coming that way.
right, right.
Hence, there is a dichotomy and a suspect, I wouldn't say suspect, their entire hollowness comes out. Okay. Now, if you don't have clear roles, you don't have clear structures, your
Yes,
doctrines also won't be clear.
right.
I mean, it just flows out. And then you are now in new battlefields.
Mm.
Earlier,
That's
the first battlefield,
another incapability you mentioned, the fact that
incapability. Yeah, these
suddenly
all,
there are multiple battlefields.
yeah, they're in multiple battlefields. They started out with Taiwan, they committed. Then they have now stretched up to Philippines. Philippines
Yes,
considers itself a frontline state. That's the status.
right.
Right? Across 800, 900 kilometers, this stretched out. They doing everything in gray zone warfare. But the PLA Navy is nowhere to be seen. But these wars won't be won by gray zone warfare alone. The PLA
Yes,
has to come in.
we have to
Okay.
come in.
Then they're threatening Japan. They're
Yes.
threatening Guam. They want to do carrier-borne activities in the Western Pacific. Then they've come across in India. They've done it two, three times.
Mm.
So then they've opened up a new battlefield in India, which they never had after
So,
62.
then Shankar, interesting. So, if you applied what the Chinese are going through today, this multiple battlefields, incapability, as you said, then if you were to apply this to the United States, I would imagine that, to give our viewers an idea of what it would be like for the US, it would be like the United States possibly fighting Canada, Mexico, Greenland, Panama. All of these
Panama
countries at the same time, taking
together.
them together.
Yeah,
And that is assuming if Canada and Mexico were as well armed as,
yeah,
say,
I
India
agree with you.
and South Korea and Japan. So he
Japan,
has taken on multiple fronts. He's opened up multiple fronts, and that is
multiple
what.
fronts.
Yes,
And within their own writings, they say they're facing four fronts today.
right.
There's one front is the Korean Peninsula. Whatever is
Yes,
happening, they're not comfortable with it. And because if Korean Peninsula goes, I think that will be the most dangerous front for uh, USA, sorry, China.
right.
Because just think a scenario where the North Korean dictator falls tomorrow,
Yes. Kim
and
Jong
the
Un.
Koreas, yeah, whoever. When I say tomorrow, it could be tomorrow, day after, 5 years, 10 years hence.
Right.
And the Koreas unite and become democratic.
Hmm.
Then you will find American troops on Yalu.
Yes, right at the doorstep
Then,
of.
yeah, and that is a major problem for China.
Right.
Then, of course, they have the Taiwan front. They have established now the South China Sea front and the Indian front. It's not going anywhere. So they're
Yes,
facing four fronts. We are crib that we are facing two fronts. They're facing four fronts.
opens.
And
Right.
they talk of something called chain reaction warfare. When
Right.
they're prosecuting war with one, can someone
Yes.
else do something? And
Hmm.
my guess is that this is one of the reasons why they have gone back from Depsang and all that. They want peace with India so that they can
Yes.
handle those three fronts.
Right. Right.
So, so you can't handle, multiple battlefields with new roles and new structures. And
Yes.
then the new equipment.
Right.
If you induct new equipment into that area without actually, bedding that equipment in, people will not. After all, if you want to use the new equipment 5,000 kilometers away from your borders, you
Yes.
need logistics for it. You
Yes.
need maintenance for it. It's not. It's very easy to say, "I'll do this, I'll do that." Where
But
are the
General,
bases?
just play the devil's advocate now. Don't you think the Chinese have been doing all this in war games? They've been holding multiple war games for the last couple of years. But surely they would be practicing all of this. They would be activating these structures, testing them out, and they would have reached some conclusions of their own. What's your take
Yeah,
on that?
I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. The Chinese are not fools. All this they would have done by wargaming and all that. But there's no substitute for experience.
Right.
There's no substitute for facing bullets.
Hmm.
What survives war? I mean, let me put it this way. Before Ukraine started, everyone thought that wars will be short and sweet,
Yes.
technology dominated,
Right.
firepower dominated, and all that.
Right.
And largely, if you see, these were emanating by writings from China, because this was
Yes.
the thing which China started. We'll do the
Right.
technological warfare and all. But now, people are talking of totalitarian war,
Yeah. Wars of attrition lasting several
attrition,
months,
and yeah, and years. Now,
years.
China is very scared of getting involved in that. It can't go on. You just think tomorrow if something happens in Djibouti,
Yes.
that forces a write-off for China.
Give us a scenario, General Shankar. If what could happen in Djibouti, and how would things play out? For instance, are you talking about a fall of their base in Djibouti?
Yeah, if suppose tomorrow the situation there changes and there's a mercenary attack on or a hybrid war on Djibouti,
And
or
the base is captured, and
and not only that, let's say there's a skirmish in this East China Sea or South China Sea between USA and China,
right,
okay, and China's outside the Djibouti base, then what? There are many many questions I can give you.
right,
If suppose tomorrow someone destroys Gwadar that way, it's a still a, these are the scenarios.
yes.
Can China respond except by
Hmm.
long range missiles? Okay, you fire four, five, six long range missiles. Then what?
You will have to. What you're saying is you will need boots on the ground. You will need their warships to be forward deployed, Marine Corps, all of that.
You need a base.
Yes,
You need a base. right? Base is just not where your ships are there. Base is place where you can go rest, refit, maintenance, victualize, and ammunition. You need to hold ammunition in that base. Why do you think
Right.
Diego Garcia and Guam are very important for USA? Because they
Yes.
hold ammunition there.
Yes, of course.
And any ships can go, and that's the base you need. You have troops for rest, refit, everything.
Right.
Right? There's no fallback option. People say the Chinese fleet will enter the Indian Ocean. How can it enter without a base? So China is still a navy with all its might, is still stuck to its shore.
Yes, yes. And there are
Okay.
certain vulnerabilities also, General Shankar, in the Navy. I mean, everyone goes rara about the Chinese, the PLA Navy being the largest in the world. But, surprisingly, they've not focused on anti-submarine warfare. And that is their biggest
Yes,
chink in
I
their armor.
agree with you. I agree
So,
with you completely. I mean,
they,
what about anti-submarine warfare? What about submarines?
yes,
What about undersea warfare? Are they good at it? Can they come out in the Indian Ocean and survive? Just one or odd nuclear submarine coming out and loafing around won't win them
yes.
wars.
So the submarine force, the attack submarine force, which is the SSNs, there is a very puny force if you look at it
Yeah,
compared to Americans. I mean, the Russians are way ahead of the Chinese, of course. They've traditionally been there, but nuclear submarines, they just have about half a dozen of them, and
even half a dozen.
they're just able to deploy one, two of these, very occasional
That's it.
deployments.
Yeah, and
So
they have not
that's a
had.
very big area of concern, I'm sure, for them.
That's the thing. And more importantly, they can't deploy it against India. Look,
Yes,
let's look at it from our threat. One or two submarines coming here, what will they do to you? Nothing. And they don't have a commander force, a marine commander force. They've been trying
yes,
to put up, a marine force,
right.
like the Marines, US Marines.
Yes.
They've not been able to do it so far.
So they've got the amphibious assault ships, but they don't have the Marines to go off
No, not even
ships.
the. See, again, there is a Hawa that they have everything together. They don't have amphibious capabilities fully the way Americans have,
Yes, yes,
right? Now, if they don't have that amphibious capability,
yes.
look, it's one, they don't have amphibious capability for Taiwan also. So forget
Right,
about, so if they don't have for Taiwan, how will they go and conquer far seas and
right.
far areas? So that is all new. And all this is underlined by new soldiers and new leaders. Don't forget that.
Right. New soldiers, new leaders in the context of the corruption, anti-corruption purges that Xi
Yeah,
Jinping has.
yes. I mean, let's start with the new soldiers. See, you have high-tech equipment. High-tech equipment needs handling of a different kind.
Right,
You don't need people who are experienced to handle it. But if every 2 years your people are changing, and do you expect the new guy to come and handle high-tech equipment, it will go down the drain.
right, right. So there's
And then all
main
these new
point.
soldiers, yeah, remember, these are all single-child conscripts.
Yes.
Their leaders are single child. So what is their motivation for sacrifice?
Hmm.
The reports coming out of Tibet, right, are that they're not done well in high altitude. They're suspect in high altitude. I Day before yesterday, I saw article in the PLA Daily that one of their achievements was giving more oxygen in high altitude to troops
Right,
in Tibet. Now I've never heard of this in Indian Army.
right.
That the biggest our problem is not oxygen. We are fighting in the same elevations.
Yes.
So that means they're not taking that terrain well, and you have to fight in terrain. You can't fight, in with technology.
Right. Drones can
Fighting is
only
a
do.
human
Yes. It
that
has to
much.
be
And
man-to-man
yeah,
combat. Yes.
man, fighting is a human endeavor. It's not a technological exercise or a economic event.
Right.
Okay. Then these, like we also discussed, you have new, leaders.
Hmm.
Leaders are getting. And if you analyze the purges which have been carried out, there are two things which stand out. One is people are corrupt,
Hmm.
and the second is that they are political purges.
Right.
In either case, if every year you're sacking 8 to 10 generals,
Right.
what will be the effect downstream?
Right.
And then you put new leaders.
Yes.
Are they experienced to handle these complex operations which China demands out of them?
Of course.
So you find, if you see all these new incapabilities and see they're all interconnected.
So, you've outlined the vulnerabilities of the PLA, Jan Shankar, so beautifully. But, coming back closer home, looking at India, right? We are in the middle of a reform right now. The Defense Minister, Rajnath Singh, just said that 2025 is going to be the year of reform for India. And he's obviously referring to the theater commands that are going to be set
Yeah.
up soon. Um, so, how do you see us absorbing these new changes, and by when do you think will it take us a certain amount of time for these theater commands to be effective when you're looking at China? Because you're literally reforming in the face of fire. You have a
Yeah.
tense border with China and Pakistan, and at the same time you're trying to reform your structure. So do we face the same problems, or possibly going ahead we could face the problems that you outlined that China could be looking at?
Yes, definitely of new structures, definitely. Roles won't change.
Right.
You see, luckily, if you look at all these 6 incapabilities,
Right.
5 incapabilities you will not have.
Right.
You will not have new equipment, you will not have new soldiers, you will not have new roles, you will not have new battlefields, you will not have new leadership,
Right.
right? Those are standard. What will
Right.
change is your new organizational structures.
Right.
Even there is a problem of being operationally effective. There can't be any loss of operational effectiveness in this change,
Right.
right? So we have to do it layer by layer.
Mm.
You have to do it, I wouldn't say incrementally, but logically. Uh, I mean, there would be a plan, but you have to do it one by one so that at any given stage, your operational effectiveness is not uh, affected, and you have a seamless transition.
Right.
I mean, this is good English to say seamless transition. There will be seams.
Right, right.
So
Absolutely.
let's be prepared for it.
Yes.
When you change from the existing command system to the theater command system, so largely at the bottom, you would not like to change your structures. Look,
Right.
let me highlight it. We've been talking, does India need a rocket force?
Mm.
Right? It might or might not need. That's a different story. Let's say, assume that you need a rocket force. You need a rocket force, fine. Would you like to make a rocket force now when you want to change into theater commands, or wait for the theater commands to stabilize and then have a rocket force?
Mm.
You can't do so much change simultaneously, isn't it?
Simultaneously. Absolutely. Yeah.
Whereas whereas PLA is doing it simultaneously.
Right.
Are there Is the Chinaman 10 foot tall that he can do everything? Right?
Possibly
And
not.
we have to, yeah, he's not. It's not possibly not. He's definitely not. And that's one of the reasons why he's probably stepped back. He's easing
Right.
tensions with you.
Yes.
And the nature of warfare has also changed.
Right.
So does he have the capability to continue fighting with you? Is the issue.
Is the issue. Absolutely. So beautifully outlined, General Shankar. I mean, the point that you made about China's 6 incapabilities, as you mentioned, and what are the lessons for us as we embark on our era of reforms beginning 2025, as the Defense Minister just pointed out. Thanks very much. Great speaking with you, as always, for those insights. We keep coming back to you for those insights on China, our northern adversary. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.